Howard, how we doing?
I'm doing great, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
So possibly 3 Sunday 7 games abound. We have the big one tonight with Houston and Golden State without Kevin Durant. What have you heard about the injury? Is it more than what we're hearing from Steve Kerr? Is this something that we may not see the rest of the year if they are able to get past the Houston Rockets? Where are we at with that?
Well, if it's any more serious than a mild calf strain, which is what they've called it, they've done a pretty good job of keeping a lid on it. You know, I got to just take it at face value at this stage that it's a mild calf strain, which is what they've publicly reported, that he's out for Game 6 and almost certainly a Game 7 if it comes to that. And that, by, middle of next week maybe, when we know where the Warriors stand in the playoffs and he has a chance to get reevaluated, we'll see whether or not he can reappear for the conference finals. But, those things are tricky. You don't want to mess around with it, obviously. They're going to be cautious, I'm sure. And, I think the real concern now is, you've got to play at least this game without him tonight. If you lose this, you've got a Game 7 without him. That's at home at least. But they're just missing such a huge piece. And it's on many levels, right? Durant's not just their best, most versatile player and arguably the best player in the game right now, but they're just down bodies. They don't have DeMarcus Cousins. Their bench was already thin to start the season and to start this postseason run. They just, I think the concern right now is how heavily you've got 3 stars left, but how heavily can you ride those guys and ride your core players to try to stave off this Rockets team that's giving them fits anyway.
Yeah, I think it's almost more about what those role players can do to help move this Golden State Warrior team forward, and not necessarily about Steph, Clay, and Draymond, but the guys that actually haven't contributed because they haven't been asked to. This could be a huge opportunity for them to step up and really solidify them as the best team altogether in the NBA.
Certainly true, but what they have now in terms of a bench is not what they started this run with a few years ago when their motto was strength in numbers, right? Like at that time, they had all these other pieces, guys like Leandro Barbosa and a younger version of Sean Livingston and a younger version of Andre Iguodala, and they had Harrison Barnes, and so it was the 3 core guys in Steph, Clay, and Draymond, but then you had a bunch of very capable, solid, top-tier type role players. And what they have now are guys who they're still kind of trying to bring along. Kevon Looney, he has his moments, and then he disappears. And, McKinney, Quinn Cook, whoever, these are, they're good, solid players, but they're not at the level that you would prefer at this stage of the season. If in a universe in which they never signed Kevin Durant, there's more depth to this roster. I'm not saying that that's preferable. They won 2 championships with him, but in a universe where you never got him, you've got a much different composition of this roster. And what they have right now are just a lot of guys who you'd prefer not to have to lean on in a game of this magnitude or in the conference finals should they make it there.
Yeah, you're talking about Kevin Durant. We're listening to Howard Beck, NBA reporter, senior NBA reporter from Bleacher Report. Steph looked his best when Kevin went out the other day. And I wonder if it's going to look different in some way, more around what Steph can do and less about what Kevin was doing, because it clearly was a dominating force on his end. But Steph Curry hasn't looked himself until Kevin went down. What do you think we're going to see out of him, not only tonight, but if there is a Game 7 without Kevin Durant on the court?
Yeah, listen, Steph Curry, the talent never went away. He certainly has taken a step back in terms of usage during this couple of years here with Durant. And that was the plan. That was understood. If you're going to invite Kevin Durant onto your team, that was an incredible move by Steph Curry, a guy who was coming off back-to-back MVPs, to make room for another MVP. And he has still been incredible the last couple of years. He doesn't shine as bright as often because he hasn't needed to. He needs to now. He knows that. The Warriors know that. I think we'll probably see quite a bit of him tonight. And, people, if they've forgotten, will be reminded why he was a back-to-back MVP in the first place. it still comes down to, can he be effective without having to play too many minutes or too many consecutive minutes? If the Rockets really hone in on him defensively and try to just deny him those shots or to just get physical with him, who's giving him that outlet? How much can Klay Thompson do? Who else on that roster can really try to lift some of that burden? That's, again, it still comes back to that supporting cast. We know what Curry can do, and I have no doubt he'll have a great game tonight, but they're going to need more than that.
They are. And from the Houston side of things, with Boogie Cousins being out, their center, their top player, the best player in the NBA right now, probably in Kevin Durant, if they don't get it done this time, when will they?
Yeah, I mean, it's the right question, Ryan. This is what it's come down to for the Rockets. When they acquired Chris Paul, Chris Paul at that time already really passed, I don't want to say well past his prime, but late prime at best when they got him. And now this is the end of the second year that they've had him. He's 34. He's got a lot of miles on him. You can see some of the erosion in his game. The Rockets know that every day that goes by, every month of games that goes by, they're potentially getting that much less of a Hall of Fame caliber Chris Paul. And they did sign him to a massive contract before this season because that's what they had to do or felt they had to do to keep him. But they know there's going to be diminishing returns. And so if you can't knock off the Warriors tonight in Houston to force a Game 7, and if you can't win this series now with no Kevin Durant on the floor, I don't know that you ever will. Now, look, Durant could leave the Warriors, as we know. The Warriors may not be the Warriors next season. And maybe James Harden, Chris Paul in year 3 can finally emerge from the Western Conference. But I just think that the window is tight. And this is probably the best opportunity they're going to have.
We're listening to Howard Beck, senior NBA reporter from Bleacher Report. Speaking of those scenarios, right? Kevin Durant doesn't play these final 2 games. Somehow Houston finds a way to win. Free agency starts for him. The first domino that probably needs to go down before anybody else does when this season's all said and done. What's your takeaway if that were to play out in that form? Whereas he doesn't play the end, they don't get into the Western Conference Finals. Is he of the mindset of almost like unfinished business with Golden State, or has he made up his mind? Is he out of Northern California and moving on now?
Yeah, I mean, like if it's possible to like make a cloudy situation cloudier,
right.
The injury has kind of done that. And if we don't see him play again in this postseason, and he has to make the decision in the wake of that, yeah, it's another element that nobody anticipated. The sense all season around the league has been, and I'm sure you've seen this and heard it many, many times, everybody around the league believes that Kevin Durant is leaving, and they all believe that he's going to the Knicks. Like, that is almost universal. I have rarely, if ever, seen it like this in the NBA, where everybody you talk to has the same sense of things. Now, everybody could just be hearing the same. It could be that game of telephone where one rumor just made its way all the way around, and it's maybe it's just idle gossip, and everybody's sharing the same piece of gossip. But it's mostly because there have been signals sent. Right? There are conversations that have been had, and there's a sense that this decision has been telegraphed. It doesn't mean it will happen, because ultimately Kevin Durant can change his mind if he even made up his mind. Maybe it's more of a leaning than an actual, hard and closed book decision. I think having the season end this way, it throws in a variable that I just don't even know how to interpret. The point has always been, if Kevin Durant leaves, it's going to be because he's already won championships and now he wants to go have his own team again. Or he wants to achieve something without it looking like he was jumping a bandwagon, which is what everybody accused him of doing by going to the Warriors. So he'll go save the Knicks, for instance, and that'll be a different kind of achievement, and he'll get more credit for it. That might hold allure, but, sticking with a team that is going to a brand new arena in San Francisco next year with a few other stars who you've been playing with and winning championships with, it's hard to walk away from that, I got to believe. And if you have unfinished business because you end up finishing this year on the shelf, how do you dismiss that?
Right. I mean, it was an interesting thought I had about what that plays out to look like and if it could actually change the narrative of where it's going. Speaking of free agency and the narrative, Kyrie Irving, a guy that's going to attract and demand a max deal, is going to walk into free agency like the big stud, probably second domino to fall to Kevin Durant. Yet he had one of the worst finishes you can imagine in playoff history with the guy heading into a max contract. What are you hearing about Kyrie Irving? Where's he looking? Is he looking to reunite with the dysfunctional family of the LA Lakers here in Los Angeles? Where are we seeing things playing out for Kyrie Irving right now?
I think that his picture's gotten cloudier too. You know, if the Celtics had made a deep run and things look good there, then you assume that they want him back, and you assume he wants to be back, no matter what else had happened during the season. But this postseason was such a disaster for them. You know, it's not just that they went down in the second round. I mean, they did lose to the top team in the East, but the Celtics were supposed to be the top team in the East. You know, they cannot possibly, as an organization, be anywhere close to satisfied with the way that this went, nor can Kyrie Irving. And a lot of this is on him. It's not solely on him. A lot of it is. Their chemistry was really screwy all season, and some of that is Kyrie Irving's kind of ham-handed attempts at leadership and some of the things he said about their younger players, the way he carries himself on the court, the way he plays, and certainly in this series where he was forcing the issue a lot instead of being more of a distributor. And those are things that went back even when he was in Cleveland winning a title with LeBron. People saw some of these glitches in his game where, he was going to be indifferent on defense at times, and he was not going to be much of a passer. And the Celtics demand more than that, and it'll be interesting to see how badly they even want him back. I mean, are they going to go all out to max him out, to keep him? Who walks away for who first? And Kyrie has been tied, of course, to KD, and so there's always been this thought that with the Knicks having two max slots available to them, that the combination, the preferred combination, was Durant and Kyrie in tandem. They are good friends, and no one will be shocked if that's what happens. I do think that anybody who's chasing Kyrie should probably pay attention to what just happened in Boston.
We're talking to Howard Beck from Bleacher Report, senior NBA writer. The disaster scenario you're talking about is simply played out here in Los Angeles. We watched it take form at the UCLA job, where it's supposed to be the mecca for coaches. John Wooden started it here. Then we look at LA, Pat Riley, and the championships won, but instead they have the second coach walk away in a week. Where do they go from here, and what does that mean for LeBron, the buses, everything LA Laker?
I covered that team for 7 years during the Shaq and Kobe era, and drama was kind of always a Laker hallmark. They do drama as well as anyone appropriate to their location. But back then it was, well, Shaq and Kobe are fighting and they want to kill each other. But hey, in the meantime, they're winning championships. And sometimes there was a little bit of tension between maybe coach and front office and ownership. I mean, it happens. It happens with even the best of organizations. What we're seeing from the Lakers right now is a whole other level of dysfunction that I don't think anybody anticipated we'd ever see from the Lakers, not from an organization with their history and their accomplishments. And it's stunning to see. It's a little disturbing to see. I hope they figure it out. I still know people in that organization and would like to see them get this thing back on track. But right now, I think the Lakers should be embarrassed about the way this whole offseason has unfolded.
I almost forgot to mention even the part of Magic Johnson up and leaving without even talking to. I mean, it's considerably a place where you thought LeBron was going to go and kind of ride off into the sunset at the end of his career, become a Hollywood mogul. Instead, there were rumors this week about Jeannie Buss trading him. So how is this going to get fixed? Who is the next head coach? What is that going to look like, and when is that announcement going to happen?
I wouldn't even hazard a guess. The way that this coaching search has gone, and as close as it seemed as they were getting to hiring Tyronn Lue and then seemingly botching that, I wouldn't even try to ultimately hire. I mean, let's go back to Magic Johnson leaving. That was considered while shocking and not handled well, was considered a blessing in disguise in that most people around the league thought, well, this is a chance for them to reset. Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka as a front office tandem never made a ton of sense, but Magic leaving gave them a chance to reassess and maybe think, listen, let's get an experienced front office executive in here. Hire David Griffin or find somebody else out there, hire somebody's number two from one of the successful teams, from Oklahoma or San Antonio or the Warriors. Go out and get somebody who's done this before. And they didn't do that. And the result is they've got this haphazard now search for a coach, and it's going about as I think you would expect.
Yeah, it certainly has. Speaking of unknowns, we have the big games this weekend starting tonight. I would like to ask where you think it's going to go. Are we going to get 3 Game 7s on Sunday? And if so, who's playing Milwaukee and who's playing in the Western Conference Finals?
Well, we've got 2 Game 7s for sure, of course, and we'll see if the Rockets can force a third. And it's going to make a lot of Mother's Days very awkward because too many of us are going to be camped out in front of TVs watching 3 Game 7s instead of going to brunch. But Game 7s are fun. Listen, I still think the Warriors pull this out. I think we see them in the conference finals. The Denver-Portland game, to me, it's a coin flip, but it is in Denver. That's a tough place for teams to play because of the altitude. The Nuggets haven't always had a great home crowd, but it's been really reinvigorated, and it's I think a good atmosphere there. I feel like that one's a coin flip. In the East, I think Toronto pulls it out. They and the Sixers are obviously very closely matched. There's a reason it's tied 3-3. The Sixers have more overall star power. The Raptors are fantastic at home defensively. They can really lock in. And I'm guessing it's Toronto, Milwaukee in the East, and Warriors and probably the Nuggets in the West. But Game 7s, man, it's a coin flip.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a fun weekend. You're right. That's an perfect example of what Sunday's going to look like for a lot of sons out there who are having to do some fun things with their mom or maybe postpone them. Howard Beck from Bleacher Report, senior NBA writer, thank you so much for joining us and have a great weekend enjoying these ball games.
Absolutely, Ryan. You too. Take care.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.